So I'm Joyce Betancourt, Vice President of the nonprofit Avicon, or as many of you know me by my avatar name, standing here, Rhiannon Chat Noir. The list behind me, just I put up quickly, is the list of the folks who are the planning team, the organizing team for this year. So if you see them around, thank them for their effort, and I thank them for all of the missed hours of sleep and the time that they've put into this. So thank you all. And I'll leave this slide up here for a bit while I talk. This is the 6th year that Avicon has had the pleasure of organizing the OpenSimulator Community Conference. And we're celebrating 11 years of OpenSimulator, of many developers working on the open source, multi-platform, multi-user 3D application server software behind this and hundreds of other public grids and many more private virtual grids that aren't viewable or visible, or you can get a feel for just how many. I'm going to put the link in actually of a great list that Maria has of all the grids if you want to look at them on Hypergrid Business, active grids. And then I want to thank our OSCC18 sponsors who are up on the screen behind us. Predominantly UC Irvine Institute for Virtual Environments and Computer Games, who support this grid. We thank them for that. Rockcliffe University Consortium, Tulane University School of Professional Advancement, the SUNY Empire State College, Loud LLC, Pure Power Streams for the audio stream you're hearing us all through this weekend, and Virtual Outworlding for its ongoing support of many of Avicon's programs and events before and above and beyond that. And of course, I also want to thank the OpenSimulator core developers for making this possible by making the software. So, and I want to give thanks to many of the crowdfunders and volunteers and presenters that make this event possible. And the slide up behind you are some of the names. I think it's the last up-to-date pull from folks who have helped support that on the crowdfunder level. All the main OSCC presentations today will be held in these keynote regions, and we're using Parcel Media. So if you can hear me, it'll be the same for the rest of the presentations. So we're using this to broadcast the presenter voices. So please make sure to click play or start on your music media controls if you cannot hear the speaker at any time. If you have any questions, you can also put them into chat and somebody will help you. We are also live streaming this event live to YouTube, and I will add that URL in here, but to the gaming.youtube.com/c/avicon.org/live, and then here's that. So feel free to share that out to others who may not be in OpenSimulator as a good way to sort of show off all the great stuff that we're doing here. If they can't get enrolled. The other thing I wanted to, let me go back to here. The other thing I wanted to mention with today is that the OpenSimulator development, just to kind of get a feel for this, many of us, I think, might not think of the big picture that though OpenSimulator is an open source project, that the majority of that folks are not getting paid for their work. So again, this kind of goes back to showing our appreciation. And these numbers here are kind of a good example, and they come from openhub.net, which is a listing of open source projects, and also gives these great stats on the development of open source stuff. So OpenSimulator has 57,684 commits made by 177 contributors, representing 8,300 839, sorry, 1,653 lines of code. And that's an estimated 232 years of effort. With that first commit starting in at least from Open Hub's point of view, in January of 2007. And the most recent commit being 4 days ago. I'm sure by Ubit, who's put a lot of tireless work into the last years of development. And you can see everybody's contributions at the opensimulator.org/wiki/development_team. And that is a fantastic list of everybody who's contributed, along with the listing of who's on core, and the most recent things. You'll see today too throughout, if you're watching the video stream live or here even in the sometimes we might play it here. There's some great videos of the GitHub and other check-in for the code, and especially in the last year, we want to give a lot of thanks to Ubit Umarov for a lot of his tireless work in bringing the 0.9 updates, and then tweaking them with any updates and revisions. So, oh, that's great that there was one early this morning. I probably made this graphic after that, or the screen capture after that. So that even shows you even today there was an update. So back to our kind of our house rule, our house stuff. As a reminder to our in-world and web stream audience, you can view the full conference schedule at conference.opensimulator.org. And if you have questions or comments, you can, and you're sharing things out on social media, you can add us in at OpenSimCC on either of those, on Twitter. And also you can use the hashtag OSCC18. If you're sharing out any photos, or you're on Twitter or on MeWe or you can use that hashtag. And if you are in world, you can feel free to IM my avatar, even if you want, with questions for Maria during this. With that, I am happy to introduce Maria, who. Let me see if I've lost any slides. Oh, this is the other slide. Sorry. I'll introduce you in a second. This is the last one actually, where they calculate actually what the code would be worth. I forgot to advance this. So over $12 million for all that effort. So unfortunately, folks aren't getting paid for that. So, so support your developers. If you go to the Q&A listing on our schedule today, there's actually a link there for some of the developers who have Patreon or PayPal payment buttons. So you can feel free to kind of visit those and help support them. So, and with that, on to Maria. Maria Korolov covers artificial intelligence for CIO Magazine and cybersecurity for CSO Online. She has also been the editor of Hypergrid Business since 2009. During her 20 years as a journalist, she's run a business news bureau in Shanghai, covered wars in the former Soviet Union, and wrote about local politics for the Chicago Tribune. But none of that prepared her for covering OpenSimulator, which has been both intensely frustrating and infinitely enjoyable. Welcome all, and so welcome Maria to that too. So whenever you're ready, you can start off.
Well, thank you very much for your kind words. It is great to be here again this year. Always love seeing the community come together and all the excitement and enthusiasm that we have in the OpenSim space. So in anticipation of this conference, I did collect some stats this past week, and I've also run a reader survey about how people feel about the grids that they're on. And so you're going to be hearing the results of that survey for the first time today. So like you just heard, my name is Maria Korolov, and the publication's address is hypergridbusiness.com for those of you who haven't seen it. So overall, we've had a slight increase in active users, and a steady amount of land area. We currently have about 3 times the land area of Second Life, which kind of makes sense because OpenSim land is much less expensive. You can run it for free on your home computer by using Dreamworld, or you can get low-cost land rentals from many hundreds of grids and independent OpenSim hosting providers. So the OpenSim is a great place if you need land to build, for a warehouse where you make content to sell on closed grids such as Second Life or elsewhere, or if you want to have a lot of land for your role-playing activities, really educational activities, lots of stuff that you want to do with land, you can do in OpenSim. And we've had a steady stream of people coming in to take advantage of that since 2007. I do an automated gathering of all the active grids that are online at any particular time. I've got more than 1,200 grids in my database total that I checked for. 380 of those grids have been online sometime in 2018. So this is 380 different grids. Some of them have closed. In Worlds is the big example of a grid that has shut down this year. Plenty of new grids have opened, and some grids pop up and then go down again, then pop up again. Every Worlds. But this is a large and dynamic community. The Hypergrid has really, it's been really taking off for the past few years. Right now, the Hypergrid is dominating. 98% of all active users in OpenSim are on Hypergrid-enabled grids, and 98% of the land area of OpenSim is in Hypergrid-enabled grids. The Hypergrid means that you can teleport from one grid to another. Many of you have teleported to this grid. You can have friends on other grids. You can send messages and content. You can go shopping on other grids. The Hypergrid makes these 380 grids feel as if they're one big grid. This year, the last major closed grid in Worlds shut down. We have a few others left. Dream Nation is the big one. A Virtual Highway is out there, but they're shutting down this month. And we've got the adult grid, but for the most part, pretty much every grid out there is on the Hypergrid right now. Let's see, what's next? OpenSim active users. We are approaching 40,000 active users in OpenSim. This chart shows the number of active users each December since 2010, which is how long I've been gathering these numbers. You can see that there's been a steady rise. There was a big peak when InWorld started reporting its numbers, and a drop when they stopped reporting their numbers because they were a big giant grid. But as you can see, the pace has been a steady rise. It has been a linear rise, not the kind of steep rise that you want to see for a platform that's taking off. But it is growing. If anyone's telling you that OpenSim is dead, they're full of it. We're gathering more users every month for pretty much the entire past 8 years. And here you have the rise in regions. We've had our ups and downs. Occasionally a grid will come online with like thousands of regions because they can, or thousands of region equivalents because we measure land in terms of square footage, not in terms of named regions. So that means that you can have a single named region that's as big as like 1,000 regular sized regions, and we would count them as 1,000 regular sized regions because when you walk around it, it looks like you're on 1,000 regions. So occasionally we get these big spikes in region growth, and then those grids shut down or change, take down that land, and the spike goes down. But overall, we've seen a steady increase again in land throughout the past few years. This year, I haven't been gathering statistics every single month like I have in the previous years, so I may be missing some of the land. So that number for this year may actually be lower than it should be because I'm not getting everybody. Another big sign of the hypergrid growth is the commercial aspects of the hypergrid. People are always worried about, well, if I have content on the hypergrid, anybody can steal it. So two things. One is people can steal content regardless of what grid it's on. The majority of stolen content comes from Second Life, which has no hypergrid. Second, the only real protections you have for being in a closed grid is if you have animations or scripting to your content. Anything else you can just rip from the content itself using one of those. The hackers know what they're using. So there's no additional protections from being in a closed grid than being on an open grid, aside from very high-end scripted content. And if you move that content, move the script server side, you avoid that issue as well. But more importantly, being on a hypergrid means you have a lot more customers. The Kitely market delivers to more than 300 different grids. You have customers on 300 grids, customers who are legitimate customers who are willing to pay money for your content, who want to buy it instead of stealing it. And you want to make those customers happy. You want to give them stuff that they can wear when they travel between grids. And that means that the content has to be hypergrid accessible. And merchants have realized that. So as you can see from this chart, for the past 4 years, the number of products available on the Kitely market that can go on a hypergrid, those are the green bars, has been growing dramatically. And the number of items that are local, that could only be used on the Kitely grid itself and can't go out, has been remaining steady. All the growth is on the hypergrid, and merchants are seeing that as well as everybody else. This week, we've done a survey of people's grids. This is what people think about the grid that they spend the most of their time on. More than 300 people have taken the survey, and these our readers who have been to a total of more than 889 different grids, because we also asked them what other grids they've been on. So this is the top grids by, according to our readers, this is where they spend most of their time. Now, not necessarily everyone in OpenSim, but the people who read our publications and take the survey. DigiWorld's Discovery Grid, both are hypergrid-enabled grids, were the top grids. Dream Nation is a closed grid that made our top 10 list this year. Sacrarium was a new entrant to the list, and Utopia Sky is a brand new write-in candidate this year that has done well. And of course, Kitely, OS Grid, we are used to seeing them on here. 90% of our readers would recommend their grid to other people. Absolutely, and another 7% or so would maybe recommend their grid, and the rest don't know, and very, very few say no, they wouldn't recommend their grid. So for the most part, our readers are very happy with the grids that they're on. Here is the ratings of the grids in categories such as content, community, support, and technology. Sacrarium was the surprise showing this this year. I will be posting all the detailed stats this afternoon on Hypergrid Business if you want to read into it. If you have a grid and you want to see your own results anonymized without any identifying information, you can email me and I'll send them along to you. As I mentioned, Sacrarium was voted as the top grid by their residents when it comes to technology and community. So the people who live there were very happy with the technology and the community on Sacrarium grid. For support, Kitely was ranked tops in their community, and I can see why. The owner, Ilan Tuchner, is extremely responsive when it comes to any questions I've ever had for him over the past few years. And there's also a strong and vibrant online help community and support groups. So they've been doing an excellent job with that and are continuing to do that. And Virtual Brazil was rated tops in content by their residents. As in previous surveys, OpenSim users do like to travel to other grids. The average reader of one of our publication who's taken a survey has been to 5 different grids on the Hypergrid. Obviously, some have been to a lot of grids. They go to like all the grids on our active grid list to check out what's going on. And some people just stay on their grid and maybe like visit 1 or 2 other grids that their friends are on. The most visited grids, OS Grid, obviously, oldest grid, biggest grids in the OpenSim metaverse. They're kind of like the town hall of OpenSim with the LBSA Plaza. There's always somebody there to help you if you have any problems running a region or doing anything in OpenSim. OS Grid's LBSA Plaza is the place to go. DigiWorlds has really taken off in the last couple of years. It's run by Terry Ford, the guy who founded Third Rock Grid, which is one of the oldest grids in OpenSim as well. And DigiWorlds has turned into a very stable, reliable, strong grid. And they're also providing hosting to other grids as well. And they're one of our top-rated OpenSim hosting providers as well. They've been doing a really, really great job. And then Kitely is also a very popular destination. You don't have to visit Kitely to buy stuff from their Kitely market, but a lot of organizations use Kitely for educational purposes, for meetings and events, because it's just so stable and really reliable. And as I mentioned, they've got great support, and the Kitely market doesn't hurt. If you have any questions about any of this, my email address is maria@hypergridbusiness.com. And you can contact me. And if you want these slides, they're available on Bitly. Whoops, a little bit of spacing problem there. Bitly /OSCC18-Hypergrid. Now, if anybody has any questions, I can answer them now. I can see that people are commenting about how they like Kitely because the products that they get in the Kitely market are licensed to use on other grids. And that's right. All the content is fully legally licensed. They have an excellent takedown policy. So if something shows up on a market that shouldn't be there, that they take it down quickly. So you can be pretty reliable about being able to use the content that you get there. Somebody asked, Lisa Laxton asked about how to remove alts from those numbers. And there is no way to remove alts. This is when a user has multiple accounts. I do not want to track people's IP addresses. I do not want to collect this information. And in any case, it doesn't really help if people log in from multiple locations. People can have multiple accounts on multiple grids. People can have multiple accounts on Second Life. People can have multiple accounts on various grids. And then people can use the same account and travel to multiple grids. Either way they do it, they will show up and be counted multiple times as active users. However, from the standpoint of a content creator or an event organizer, what you want is that you have active users coming. And every one of these active users is a potential customer, is a potential audience member, so it all helps.
Maria, we're going to probably have to break for the questions since we're at time, but I think this is all a great collection of numbers. It's always fantastic to see the latest stats. So thank you very much for pulling this all together for us and kind of kicking things off for today.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for having me.